So we are so stoked to bring this next guest to the Rail Talk studio. She's an expert bloodstock agent. She's picked out a myriad of great horses for Jon Green and DJ Stable. She really is the brains behind the operation. Let's be serious. Kim Valerio, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, it's always great to see you and great to talk to you. And, I appreciate you making some time. And this is a really busy time for you with the yearling sale coming up. So I kind of wanted to jump in right there and ask that, like, what is your process like when you're prepping for these sales? Not just the yearling sales in general. Like, how long out are you doing prep work? Like, how often or how early are you going to see these horses? Like, just take us through, like, let's say like the month leading up to a big sale.
Well, leading into September now, we had, of course, Fasig-Tipton up in Saratoga. So that takes us 2 weeks out from this sale, basically, a little more because it's later this year. But my assistant Anna is here. We've been compiling all of our information. We do put a lot of our notes in from seeing them as weanlings. I've seen a lot of horses at every sale. I try to look at every horse to book 5 at the end of it. So it's a lot of legwork. So now we would just be putting in who the breeder is, if it was pinhooked, speed figures, our notes from when they were babies, any families that we want to know about, who has a lot of notes. I mean, if you look at my catalogs, you'll see that it's just probably way too much information, but we're down to collectors, Anna and I. So we have piles of spreadsheets over here from every sale. Just we know the names of the majority of the ones that we had pegged as the top, 20, 30 on the day. So it's a lot of work, but we love it. So it's just part of it. I have Kim, been looking.
There we go. We went 30 seconds without interrupting.
John, jump in.
I was going to say, I think you're being modest because not only do you put all the information in on the progeny and half brothers and sisters, but you guys are also doing a lot of legwork in advance. I don't think a lot of people realize, but you're already you're going to farms and basically doing all shows, right? For some of the major consignments, whether it's Airdrie or TaylorMade or et cetera.
Yeah, this year I haven't done as many as I wanted, but I did Airdrie. I love going there. I love Brett and the whole farm. They race horses. I do get to look at Coolmore because my horses are there. This year I didn't do as many as I would like to, just preparing, getting my own horses in line. So generally, yes, we would do that.
It gives you the opportunity to see horses 2 or 3 times, right, before you actually get a short list to your clients?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The problem is they change so much. And if we're looking at these horses that are in book 4 and 5, I don't want to throw them off the list. I'd rather just see them again, like you're saying. We see them a lot, I will say. And we put in those notes from the farms. It's looking at them often. I don't like to give you a list unless I've seen them at least 2 to 3 times. So that's important.
Yeah, no doubt. I wanted to know a little bit more about your background. Did you have a horse background growing up? And also similarly, like when did you figure out that you could be good at this? Was there like one horse that you picked out or like one experience that you had where you're like, hey, I could do this for a living?
I have a show jumping background. I was a groom, a work rider. So, we rode them and we groomed them and we took care of them and we drove the truck. We drove the trailer. I worked for some great people in show jumping, the Steinwoodell family out of California, who happened to be Baffert's neighbor, is really how I started getting into racing the most. Poor Bob, I picked his brain all the time on how to select horses and watch them train with them and look at them jog up in the barn and talk about soundness and all of that. The same family I worked for back in Ohio, the Alexanders, they were related. And Mrs. Alexander was the leading owner and breeder in Ohio. So having all of her show horses, really, I was in the game at a smaller level. So I would say it was Betty, Mrs. A, that allowed me to buy my first racehorse, which was Magna Graduate. He won the Clark Handicap, the only 3-year-old that year to beat older horses. He ran 35 times, only 3 times out of Graded Stakes or Stakes Company. You know, he ran on 16 different racetracks. He made $2.5 million, which today would probably be $5.5 million. So I would say that horse is really made me say, I'm going to do this. I don't want to be dirty. My knees hurt. My back hurts. I'm thinking of driving the truck.
That's why we became podcasters.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very quickly gig.
Yep. And Kim, I think you're being modest because not only do you have Magna Graduate, but a lot of people don't realize, and Joe, I'll include you in this group, but Kim has purchased 9 different Grade 1 winners for $100,000 or less. Let that sink in. It's not just 9 Grade 1 winners. It's 9 Grade 1 winners for under $100,000. And I think the Condo Commando was the one that really put you on the map. Won 5 out of 8 races, including the Spinaway as a 2-year-old. And what did you see in her that made you say that's a winner?
I will say I've had 3 Spinaway winners for under 100, which is awesome. Condo, she was to go back to where I come from. My father is he builds race cars for a living, so he's a fabricator and a tuner. She looked like a race car. She just was so fast looking, and she had a great pedigree. She was sleek and lean and mean, and black. You know, I loved her. All my dad's race cars tend to be black. I just love that feel. Not to be picking race cars out, but they pretty much are.
Yep.
So
Yep, right.
She had such a good pedigree. I was surprised we got her for that, but she had vet issues. We waited to break her. We didn't break her till October. We saddle broke her. Matt Hogan did it for me. And then we didn't really re-break her until January. And then she won a Group 1 in September. So, leaving them be until they heal, there's a lot to say about that. So,
Yeah, no doubt. I wanted to ask, like, that the thing that pops into my head always when I think of Condo Commando was Splashtastic. That was Tom Durkin's last call at Saratoga when she won the Spinaway. That was it was a messy day, but I'll always remember her for that. I assume you were there, Kim? Were you?
I was
what was
there.
That experience
It was
like?
so much fun. It was pouring out. It was a blast. I mean, she was a really nice horse. I loved her. Honestly, I sometimes think she probably was the best horse I picked. There was so much to her. She had so much class. I loved her. When she was by Tis Wonderful, I had another Tis Wonderful that still has, I believe so, I'd have to check, but she broke her maiden by 21 lengths at Saratoga. Her name was My Happy Face. She got beat a nostril by Dreaming of Julia and Frizette and almost won the test, got beat a neck there. She sold on the last day of the sale for $35,000. So, Tis Wonderful was good to me. I'm sad Tis Now is basically extinct, but
yeah. Does it matter what book you buy a horse from, or what sale you buy it from, if it wins, or are there ones like you mentioned, or a Wonder Wheel or something like that maybe is a little bit more, you have a little bit more satisfaction because you saw. I think Lucas used to always say you could see the cat in the picture, and you kind of saw the cat before it developed.
Yeah, the sale company doesn't matter as much. Obviously, Saratoga, I don't really get to buy there, but you have to go, you have to look. I mean, if you don't see those horses, I'm constantly, the races are there, my catalogs are there. When they win, I go to look to see, was I on it? What was wrong with it? Blah, blah, blah. But I would have to say there's good horses in every catalog. If you just think about the Derby and the Oaks winner this year, they come from anywhere. So, I'm a pedigree snob, so I would rather keep pedigree and give up vet work. to balance it out and just leave the horses be until they feel like they're ready to go. So, to answer that question, the sale companies bring the products, the breeders bring the products. So they're there to buy.
I want to shift gears for a second because Jon let me in on a little change of heart that you've had. You were originally not for HISA and the new regulations that came into the sport. And it sounds like you've evolved on that. And now you're kind of, putting your efforts towards helping, unify and make the sport safer. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Like what were you initially skeptical about? And then what kind of has led you towards the path where you're more supportive of it?
I've never been against uniform rules, and working for Mrs. Alexander, who was very involved in the horsemen's, the HBPAs of Ohio and Kentucky, they were almost over the line with it, with the NUMP, the National Uniform Medication Policies. What I wasn't for was the federal government, who can't even do anything really at this point, but raise money for the presidential election. I just thought that there were too many people involved in this sport that were so intelligent that why wouldn't we just try together to push it over the line? And, in the end of the day, we have to remember that the real owner of the sport, besides the racetracks, are the horsemen's group through the signal. And with that said, I thought that we should have gotten behind the HBPAs and the national HBPAs and really held the line through the thoroughbred owners and breeders and made them get it done, not, be forced to be attached to the COVID bill. And now you have these rules set in place. And now we are, to a point where you're guilty until you're proven innocent. So I just didn't want that to happen. And I also thought that instead of going through the Department of Justice and the commerce side of things, which is where we're at, we should have maybe went through the USDA, where we already had the testing machines in order. We already had this. People were already aware of the equine. There's a big difference in calibrations of machines with humans and horses. So we also had the oversight of the dairy and the beef and the poultry and the swine business, where the animal rights groups, we were more protected through that. I understand why they wanted to do it. They wanted the Department of Justice to be able to phone tap people. So, and our government does not commingle. So the commerce side wouldn't necessarily commingle with the USDA. So I got why they made that decision. But why I was against it was because of what I just said. I thought we should have went more towards the side of our horses having the oversight, not the Jockey Club having the Department of Justice step in. That's where I was against it. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And Kim, one of the things that you've educated me on, and that Joe and I have spoken about as recently as this show today, which is the cleanliness and importance of having the barn area, be as clean and germ free as possible. And so many of the racetracks are pouring money into the front side, that they're not even looking at the barns that haven't been touched, other than for coats of paint and maybe some duct tape here or there for the past 4 or 5 decades. Walk the audience through, because again, you educated me on this. Walk the audience through on the importance of why clean stalls and new barns would add a benefit to the horse industry.
Well, for one, with the medications being taken away from the horses for just pure clean air, using bronchodilators and other things that we can do to keep their air clean. They're dirty. There's no airflow, and the cross contamination is terrible. So, it's ultra important to just continually to relate our equine athletes to our human athletes. And like when you go to UK at a college level, their locker rooms are spotless. And our locker rooms are deplorable and disgusting. So I have put up a big fight. I have gone to Churchill. I've asked them over and over again, what are we going to do? Especially with my background in show jumping, the footing, those horses last till they're 20. I mean, we just saw horses jump the Olympics that are 18, 19 years old. You know why? Because their footing is pristine and their care is impeccable. And we don't have any control over that because we have seemingly, instead of banding together in solidarity and saying we want more for the horses, not necessarily in the drug rules, but in our locker rooms, it's the most important part of it, really. And I can't stress enough, it pains me to go there anymore. I can barely go to the backside. I mean, it's so dirty. It's so, there's no empathy or compassion for the people back there. I'm, working for Mike Dubb, the amount of work he put into just getting them better housing. I mean, look at how much they've done for NYRA, for the housing. That's important here. We've got to step it up on our people and our compassion. I mean, Churchill, they just put bathroom doors on the bathroom. I mean, it's really? How can that be? Wow. How can that be? There's no running water. I sent you that video, John, remember? With the trickle of water, how are our grooms washing their hands? So with all that said, I had a long conversation with Charlie O'Connor, who sits on the Kentucky State Racing Commission. And I just said, please, I'm begging and pleading with anybody to just make the locker rooms better for the horses, please. That's all I'm asking.
Right.
So, it's important.
Are you sensing any movement on that?
I think so. Yes, I'm praying. Yeah. Because I'm not going to stop. And quite frankly, I've asked Bill Karstanjian if I could sit down and talk to him, and he said yes, that easy. And after the sale, I'm going to do it. And I'm just going to say, the moment that the likes of Churchill Downs in corporate say, we're going to put this huge investment into the horses, is the moment that our fans are going to go, oh my God, they're so lucky to have this. Right. The time, it's way past due. And I mean, my next step is to go to the shareholders and cause a big ruckus, because I'm not going to stop at it. I'm a horseman. Right. My stalls out in my backyard are cleaner than the stalls we get at Churchill Downs. That's sad. So right. I don't mean to be that way, but that's probably the most important part to me are animals.
Yep. Yeah. We appreciate you shaking shit up, because I agree. Like I go to Belmont, and like you said, they've done a lot for backstretch housing, but like they're building an entirely new racetrack and not touching the barn area. Right. And that needs a revamp just as much as the racetrack does, if not more. So it's a great point that you make. One last question from me, and it's back on the HISA drug policy subject, because they're talking about expanding the rules to cover sale horses. And you're the expert, so I defer to you. How big of a problem is that when you go to sales and like horses might have corrective surgeries that you don't know about, or they might be on certain medications that you don't know about? How big of an issue is that when you're trying to scout horse flesh?
I understand why people would do it, but I don't like it. So, I used to be the first one there and the last one to leave at every sale. I just can't do it anymore. I'm getting too old. But so I would see a lot, and it was shocking if the trainers were to do what the horses were getting at the sales. They would be banned for life. Let's just go with that. And when we had the big change and the sale companies said, racing is filthy with drugs, literally I called Jeffrey and I called Boyd and I said, you have got to be kidding me with this statement. You have to clean your act up more. So they did. They made a change, and I'm super grateful for that. They really did. I think it's important that the consigners remember that why they're using medications is because these horses are being shown so much. So it's the book 1, 2, and 3 horses. You know what I say? Put their back shoes on them sooner and school them. Don't walk them around a big field. Walk them on the dust, the gravel, and you're turning them more. Teach your handlers how to turn them wider. Don't turn them like they're bicycle bicycles because they're not. There's so many things that we can do better instead of going to medications. So, I understand why they use them. I don't want the horses to be sore either, but I want to buy my clients like Jon. I want them to be able to race the same product that I bought them. I don't want it to go home and then it gets deflated.
Right. And I think it's because of your actions and others that have spoken up and said, as buyers, we're not going to accept this anymore. And that's why, Keeneland and Phasig and OBS were have all, to their credit, have all stepped up and changed and updated their medication rules. And OBS is also, coming out with a Gallop Up sale option for the sales, for the 2-year-old sales as well, which I think is another big step forward for the industry and also giving, people what they want. Kim, let me just shift gears for one more thing that I don't think the audience knows. And that is, you and I talk a lot about the way that the way that horsemanship is handled in Europe and in other countries in comparison to here. And when you and I went over to Ireland to the sales, it really was an eye-opener for me as to how they handle young horses, how they train horses. And I know that a lot of the things that they implement, it just isn't an option here. But what are some of the things that you've seen from a horsemanship standpoint that you would like for American trainers and owners to adopt here?
For one, I just the continually turning left is detrimental on their bodies. I just don't understand how we just continually turn left with them. So when I'm blessed that I've been to Ballydoyle a million times and, they go straight often. They are not one-sided. The other thing is the majority of their riders are also their grooms. So they have a better connection. We don't have, our horses ship a lot here. So they go from one person to the next person to the next person. And, the one thing I can say is this, another great horse that I picked, Scat Daddy, I know that a lot of his winning, he was a mama's boy. He was a crybaby. And, just him always having his people, it made a huge difference. And I feel like if you can't see that on Saturday mornings watching these races in Europe, that it's the same people with their horses every single time, that has a lot to do with it. Riding my whole life, I know one thing. If somebody else rode one of the horses I was training for a week straight, I lost connection with that horse. He made changes for the better or most of the time worse. So I feel like what is really needed here, especially, is another Fair Hill. I feel like if Kentucky could just implement, which is something I'm working on right now with Matt Hogan, is trying to get this big farm bought and turning it into, tourism is huge here. We're going to try to structure something where maybe we can go to the Churchill Downs and say, take down 2 barns, give the horses more room, put paths in, they walk on concrete. That is the one thing that a good friend of mine said, the horses are doing so well in Saratoga right now because they're not walking on concrete all the time. That gets old after a while. It jars them up. So, I feel like a big training center with a big racetrack, a poly track, a grass gallop, come there and be part of it and touch and feel the horses. It's going to be important. Really what I've been working on a lot lately is trying to get a couple people to step up and look at this project and say, this is something special. So Keeneland, you got to move out all the time. They take better care of their surface than nearly anybody in racing. So we have to get out of the best surface all the time. Then we have to go to racetracks that don't water. It's detrimental on their joints. So, that's what I think we need to do. I think we need to together make it happen.
So you said that Kentucky's second leading product was thoroughbreds. Is their top leading product turning billionaires into millionaires?
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. You're not
How to
kidding.
make a small fortune. There's always old adage. How to make a small fortune in racing. First, take a large fortune.
Exactly. Exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
One thing that Kim's done for us time and time again is getting value, and we really appreciate it. My dad just texted me a question because he knew you were going to be on. He said, "Why can't you find us more Grade 1 winners?" That's all. That's all he wanted to know.
I'm trying. We're going to have another one.
Yeah. Well, Kim, thank you so much for coming on and for the expertise. You know, it was lovely getting to know you. And I know, you know, with people like you fighting the good fight, the sport is in good hands. So appreciate the time and come back on. We'll just talk about like the scat daddies of the world, like all these horses you picked out. We'll just do an interview of that.
Yep. Yeah. And Sandman. Don't forget, Kim picked out Sandman from the Gallop.
Well, I have to end by saying I'm so thankful to Jon for, you know, buying horses that are just galloping. He knows how compassionate I am about, you know, a horse being turning and burning that early in life. So to step up and pay that kind of money with Vinny and in West Point with a horse that's just galloping, you know, that means the world to me. Thank you, Anna, for constantly bothering people down there and telling me where they're at.
It's just a shame that Joe's getting married the same day as the Iroquois. That's the only
I'm
thing.
Streaming it, baby. I'll be streaming it from the wedding. Don't you worry. Yeah, feel good story all around.
For sure.
That's right.
Kim, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you and everything you do.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, our pleasure. Look forward to spending time with you in a couple of weeks, Kim. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Next week.